Good afternoon, friends of the Risen King. My name is Enoch. Welcome to another episode of Get to Know. I'm fresh off of my new album, Deus Volt, so if you get a chance, please check that out and support your local artist. Um, Today I have with me someone who doesn't need an introduction. He's a father, a husband, an author, bestseller, and I'd like to introduce everyone, and thanks for coming on, Dr. Marshall.
Great to be here, Enoch.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and giving me your time. Doctor, I just want to get started, just go straight to it. I started these series because a lot of folks know from your work, the podcast that you do, the books that you wrote, even through the new St. Thomas Institute that you have. And sometimes through your podcast, we can get a glimpse of who you are. But I really wanted to get down and just get people to give understanding of Dr. Marshall. So we want to start from the very beginning, if you don't mind. Tell everybody what decade you were born in.
70s.
The 1970s. That's wonderful.
Got it. Okay. 78. Yeah, I was born in 78.
1978. Okay. Do you have any siblings?
I have two. I have a younger sister and a younger brother.
Younger sister and younger brother. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Texas, where you're living right now, or in a different state?
Yeah, I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, and spent my whole life there. I was born there and graduated in high school. So, full on Texan.
Full on Texan. That's awesome. What kind of child? So, were you like rambunctious? Were you just kind of to yourself? Were you quiet, or were you extroverted?
No, I had like a gang of friends, that we used to, go. I lived by a lake, so we would go there and we'd go fishing, and a group of kids, we'd ride bicycles, we'd go down to 7-Eleven and buy baseball cards and candies and Slurpees. And no, I kind of had a group that that ran with, I'd say all the way, up and through high school. So I wasn't ever a loner. I had a lot of friends and yeah, I think pretty normal, nothing strange. Yeah.
So, growing up, so you grew up mostly in the early 80s, I would say, or through the 80s.
Yeah.
So,
which was a great time to grow up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Looking back, what would you say was like your absolute favorite breakfast growing up? Like this was on the table, you really wanted to eat.
Oh man, favorite breakfast. Well, we always had breakfast. Sometimes it was cereal. I think probably as a little kid, I liked cereal. As I got older though, I always kind of liked the pancakes and sausage. That was always one that I liked as a kid.
The pancakes and sausage.
And eggs too. Yeah, but as a kid, now I pretty much just eat eggs. But as a kid, pancakes and sausage is probably my favorite thing to get. Yeah. Okay. And then sometimes my dad, when he would take me to school, we would go to what's the name of that place? I can't remember, but they had these little French toast dips that you could dip in the syrup. And I always thought that was cool.
Okay. What was your favorite cereal brand? Did you have one?
Yeah, I really liked Count Chocula. They still make that?
I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I also liked, believe it or not, as a kid, I liked Raisin Bran.
Okay. Yeah, that's my wife. My wife likes that stuff.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So
I think my dad ate Raisin Bran, so I probably was just eating it because that's what my dad ate. But yeah, I remember eating a lot of Raisin Bran as well. But I think Count Chocula was like a treat,
Oh, that was the good stuff. Yeah. You remember Cocoa Pebbles too? They had that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It turns your milk into chocolate milk, so which is great.
Right.
So growing up, was there like a Saturday morning cartoon or a go-to cartoon that you really liked watching?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember in the 80s, we didn't have that many channels. I don't even know if we had cable early on. So there's only the cartoons were only on Saturday, really. Mm-hmm. So I remember as a little kid, I loved Spider-Man.
Oh yeah,
loved that. Now it wasn't always on Saturday mornings, but there was the Incredible Hulk with the actor in it who was painted green. Who was that? that famous bodybuilder guy who played him. Anyway,
yeah, I remember telling. Yeah, okay.
It's in the 80s. Anyway,
Yeah,
I
right.
love that. So I would watch that show and I would get all hyped up, and then I would go and break stuff around the house, and my parents got after me. They called it hulking around. I remember once, like, my dad had this big speaker, and I just was like pretending to be Hulk, and I just like push it into the window. So yeah, I liked Hulk. I thought that was kind of cool as a little kid, that you could get all crazy and like strong. I thought that was a pretty cool thing. Yeah, so I think probably Spider-Man, Hulk. And I'm trying to remember what else. I also remember watching Fat Albert.
Oh yeah, yeah. Bill Cosby, right?
Yeah, but it was a cartoon.
Right.
I remember that. Yeah, and then also I think there was a Justice League one too.
Do you remember He-Man? That was on the 80s too, I believe.
Yeah, I watched He-Man. Yeah, I watched He-Man. I had some of the He-Man figures. Okay. Those are pretty cool. Yeah, that was a little bit later.
Right.
I really liked Star Wars when I was younger, and then maybe second grade I got into He-Man, probably around there, maybe first grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Did you like He-Man?
Looking back, I wasn't around. I mean, I was born in '85, but look, going back and watching some of this stuff, yeah. So I grew up in the '90s. That's my favorite decade. That's I'm biased,
okay.
So that was.
I see. Yeah, because see, my friend growing up, he couldn't watch He-Man because he said he's the master of the universe, and his mom said Jesus is the master of the universe, so you can't watch him.
He's not lying.
Yeah. I mean, that was actually good theology, and then. He could watch G.I. Joe, but I couldn't watch G.I. Joe because that was like, I guess, too violent or something. I don't know, but I could watch He-Man and couldn't watch G.I. Joe. So when we went over each other's houses, we would watch what each other couldn't see.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Let's move up a little more to preteens and teens. What high school did you attend?
I went to Southwest High School.
Okay.
Hopefully that's not one of the questions on my password recovery. You know what I mean? That I just told the world. Yeah, I went to Southwest High School. It's in Southwest Fort Worth.
Okay. And did you play any sports in high school or middle school and high school?
Yeah, I played baseball and golf not well. I was on the baseball team and the golf team, and I maybe started one game on baseball. Like that's how bad I was.
Wow.
I was like third string, but I love baseball. I still love baseball. I just wasn't that good at it. I could hit pretty good, but in the field, I just wasn't that great.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And so now, in high school, did you have any interests? You said you spent a lot of time outside. We were like, I was the last of the dying breed, that my generation, the last ones to spend time outside. And you said you spent a lot of time outside with
every
friends.
day. I mean, we would get home from school around 3. I mean, this is from elementary on up. And I mean, I don't remember, I guess like later on in high school, it was the 90s. Like you would come home and maybe like watch MTV or something,
Yeah.
But so I can remember something, but like before that, like you came home at 3, you got your I had a skateboard, you had a bike, you had fishing poles, and like we would literally play. And then my mom had a dinner bell on the side of the house, and she would literally ring the dinner bell around 6:30. And I would hear that, and I would hear the dinner bell, and I would go, and I would be hungry.
Right.
And I would go home, and we would have dinner every night as a family. So yeah, so I mean, it was outside. And then even when, going into high school, you would have sports after school.
Right.
And you would be running laps, you'd be, infield, outfield, hitting. I mean, or if I was on the golf team, we would go out to the golf course and you would play golf until it got dark, and then you would go home and eat dinner. So yeah, I mean, it was a great time to be alive. I look at kids today and I see all the video games and the TV and the streaming. Like even my own kids, they're just like, they spend so much time figuring out what they want to stream. Like, like going through the menus. I mean, back then it was either like something good was on or probably not good, and you just went outside and played with your friends.
Right. So going on more towards the college years now. So what college did you attend?
Texas A&M.
Okay.
Texas A&M.
you moved on to theological school after that?
Yeah, so I went to seminary straight out of college, Protestant
Okay.
seminary.
Was college around the time you met your wife?
Yeah, so I entered college in 96. Is that right? Yeah, 96. I went to college in 96.
That was the year Tupac
And
died, people.
yeah, that's right. That's when Tupac died. Now we kind of skipped over something here.
Okay, please share. Yeah.
I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I don't know if you know that or not. So although I had a wholesome childhood, I had great parents, but we never went to church.
Okay.
And so when I was around 1987, 88, somewhere in there, is when Daryl Porter, who by then was the catcher for the Rangers, he wrote an autograph for me. Do you know the story? You know?
I don't know. Please.
Oh, okay. So he wrote an autograph for me, and under his name, he wrote Romans 10:9. And I was like, oh man, this Major League Baseball player is trying to send me a code, like a message. And so I figured out it was a Bible verse, and I looked it up. And it said, if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved.
Wow.
So I wanted to be saved. I was not baptized. I was nothing. My friend who couldn't watch He-Man, he had told me, I'm not saved because I'm not baptized. I'm going to hell. So I was like, well, I'm screwed. But now here's this verse from Daryl Porter saying that I could be saved. I just had to say Jesus is Lord and believe that he raised him from the dead. I don't even know if I knew what raised from the dead meant. I was about 10 years old, I'm guessing.
Okay.
So that was like the beginning of faith, or who is Jesus, who is God, heaven, hell. That was all beginning there for me. And then in high school, I really started going to different churches and trying to figure out, like, what's this all about? I read the Bible 2 times in high school because I was trying to figure out, I know I believe this, but I don't know much about it.
Sure.
So that's kind of my 90s, high school time period there.
Okay. So not growing up in a Christian household.
I mean, nominally, my parents would have said we're Christian, but we never went to church.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And what denomination did you enter into when you had your own decision to make?
So when this experience happened, and I read the Bible verse, then I started asking questions about God, and my parents, they didn't have a lot of answers. So they had been married in the Methodist church by a Methodist preacher.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a Methodist church near our house. So they were like, well, let's just drive over there. And so my initial exposure was through the Methodist denomination.
Okay. Wow. And then you entered seminary right after. So you met your wife around college time. Tell us about that. Like, what was that story? How did you guys meet? And if you don't mind sharing, tell us the proposal story. I always ask this question.
Okay. All right. So, so in high school, like in college, I was like, okay, I'm going to major in philosophy and minor in Greek and Latin because I'm going to go to seminary and be a Protestant pastor. Wow. That was my plan.
Wow.
So that's what I did. And, I had girlfriends and went on dates, but nothing was all that serious. And then in 1999, a friend of mine, he said, hey, my cousin has this friend that I like, and I want to go out with this girl. So what I need you to go out with my cousin, and we'll do this double date, and that way I can get a date with her friend. Okay. So that was the deal. And I was like, man, this is lame. And he's like, by the way, it's like an hour and a half away at Baylor.
Okay.
All right. We were at Texas A&M. That's in College Station, Texas. Baylor's in Waco. It's about an hour and a half or more. So I was like, oh, now people, it's interesting that I tell this story now to people, especially young people, because they're all like, because nowadays you could just go on Facebook or Instagram and look that person up and see if they're attractive or what Twitter, or you could go and find that. Back then, dude, there was zero opportunity to vet people.
Sure.
Like you literally walked into these things on a blind date. It was literally blind. You had zero. Like my cousin didn't have a picture of her or anything, right? So it was just like, will you do this for me? And it's like, oh, by the way, like my cousin's pretty and you'll like her. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like you're just trying to get me to do the deal, to work out this deal for you. So I agreed, and we drove the hour and a half to Waco, Texas, and to meet this girl he liked and then his cousin. And so we knocked on the door, and Joy, who's my wife, opened the door and kind of like smiled and said, come in, and then awkwardly like went upstairs and disappeared. And so like we two guys are just in the living room, and he's kind of nervous, and I'm like, who is that? Is that your date or my date? He's like, that's my cousin. That's your date. Like, okay, good. Like she was pretty. I was like, okay, good. Like this is going to maybe work out, And so we went to a Christmas concert because it was in December, and we went to an Italian dinner. And I remember during the dinner, she said something about communion or the Eucharist. We're all four of us are Protestant. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
And I remember thinking that was like really cool. Like that she was like into that and like studying it and thinking about it. Because by this time I was like, I had gone to charismatic, I'd been to Bible churches, I'd been a Calvinist, I'd been in the PCA. I had read the Institutes of John Calvin. By the way, your rap battle with that Lutheran guy was really funny. It was really good.
Thank you.
So I had read a lot of Luther, Calvin, and by this point I had kind of moved into my Anglican phase. I was like, you need sacraments, you need church history, you need apostolic succession, you need communion, Eucharist. Like I'm still a Protestant, but I'm starting to like make those revolutions towards Catholicism. So the fact that she was like really involved in her church and like mentioned communion and all that, I was like, I like this girl. So at the end of the date, I got her phone number or email or something like that. And then on our second date, which I think was on New Year's Day or something like that, I said, and on that date, she mentioned something about apostolic succession in conversation. So I was like, man, this girl, right? Yeah. I was like, okay, wow. I mean, we're 21 years old, both of us.
This is the first date.
Like, oh wow, this girl's like more reflective and like well-read than a lot of girls that I've been around. So then I said to her, I was like, hey, I live an hour and a half away from you and I'm going to seminary in the fall. But I like you and I would pursue you and maybe we could get married. And that's the only reason I want to date you. What do you think? That's kind of like a big thing to say on a girl, to a girl on the second date.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I like her, but I'm not going to like drive an hour and a half to go on a date with her. Like that doesn't make sense, especially since it's our senior year, And she kind of smiled and said, I would like that. So I was like, okay, it's kind of like, let's figure out, do we want to marry each other over the next few months and then either go for it or hit the kill switch. So it's kind of pragmatic. I mean, I'm a very like upfront, honest person. I pretty much always speak my mind. If you watch my podcast, you know that. Sure. So that's kind of just the approach I took to romance, and it worked out great, cool. So yeah, so I would go up and drive and go on a date with her, and eventually met her parents and eventually asked her dad to marry her.
So you asked dad's permission first, which is great. Was it like one of those dinner, got on your one knee, or was like, did you like plan something funny, something special to propose?
Yeah. So I got a job and I worked really hard to buy that ring.
Right.
I was a UPS truck packer.
Is that right?
While I was in seminary. So I go to seminary at night, like from 9 to midnight, I would pack UPS trucks. And I also was a waiter at Macaroni Grill.
Oh yeah, okay, I heard of that place.
Okay. So yeah, so that's what I did to save money and to save up for the ring. And then to ask her to marry me, it was December again. So it was 1 year after we had met. By this time, I'm living in Philadelphia. I'm in seminary and she's still in Texas. So I came back at the Christmas break and I rented a limo and we were going to go look at Christmas lights, but then a limo came. So we were looking at Christmas lights in a limo and we're in this really nice neighborhood with all these Christmas lights. And I was like, let's stand up out the top of the limo. So the limo driver opened the moonroof, you know?
Yeah.
And so we were both standing out, you know, looking at the Christmas lights. And then at a certain point, I just got on one knee. So I like went kind of down in the limo and she was still standing up.
That's cool.
And I asked her to marry me. Yeah.
I've never heard that before. Yeah. That's creative.
Yeah.
That's really
and then we went to dinner. I think we went and got like Mexican food and margaritas or something afterward.
Oh, you got to. Thanks for that. And now how many children do you have? Years later.
We have 8 children. We have 8 children.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So I'm gonna do so we're gonna talk about pop culture if you don't mind. First question is, can you tell the audience right now who is your favorite Catholic rapper? So just wondering.
Enoch.
No,
I'd seen you around on social media.
Sure.
And but I hadn't, and then there's the one song where you like name all the Catholic influencer people.
Yeah. Unite the Clans,
Yeah, Unite the Clan. That's right. And I'm at the very beginning there, right? So correct, someone sent me that, and I listened to that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, you know.
Yeah. Thank you.
But then when you did the response video to the horns, and then after that, I spent just like 2 hours like binging all your YouTube content and listening to your stuff, and
I appreciate that. Thank you, Doc. Appreciate it.
But I mean, having been a teenager in the 90s, like when I heard like the initial music of that response video I did, I was like, oh man, he's going Tupac, hard Tupac. Like,
so you knew
like the greatest. That's like, I knew that was like, I knew that is the greatest diss song of all time. Like,
still is. Yeah.
Is it still?
It still is. Yeah. The consensus is Tupac's Hit 'Em Up. Number 2 is Nas Ether when he dissed Jay-Z. So
I might know that one. It's just been so long, but I mean, I definitely knew Hit 'Em Up just being in the 90s.
Still is the top diss song of all time, which is crazy. Yeah. It goes to show you how great it was. What kind of music did you listen growing up?
So when I was a kid, you know, we had vinyl. So I mean, I'm not joking. We have straight up vinyl. Like, my dad had a record collection. So in the record collection was Beatles Revolver, the black and white cover, Magical Mystery Tour, which is kind of a dud Beatles album, but I mean the album that I listened to a ton as a kid, the vinyl, was Michael Jackson Thriller. This is like elementary school.
Sure.
We had that vinyl, and I mean, I listened to that a lot.
Okay. So you were a big Mike Jackson fan?
You know, that was just what we had. I mean, that was everyone has all this like Spotify and they listen to like thousands of songs. Back then, like you really listened to albums.
Right.
And it was kind of like restricted, other than the radio, which wasn't that varied. You know, like we listened to, I mean, it was just radio and then whatever vinyls your parents had. I remember getting my uncle's collection, and it had like some Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix and like a lot of his older stuff from like the late 60s, early 70s, Peter Frampton, and being like, whoa, this is really cool. But then, you know, when I got to middle school and high school, probably in middle school, I like during that time was like U2 was big.
Yeah.
You know, Bono, that was a really big deal. And then really like it between 8th and 9th grade for me is when, you know, it was really cool to be in like Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith and all that. But that was like that summer. And then that year going in the winter, it was like when Nirvana dropped, then Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, like that whole thing happened. And like being like 8th, 9th grade and like the angst of being a teenager and thinking your parents are dumb and all that, you know, like for some reason I just caught up in it. That's what I like thought was super cool.
Sure.
Was that whole grungy thing, right? And then that eventually became things like Weezer. But also during that time period is when Dr. Dre's Chronic came out. I don't know what year that was. Was that 92, 91, something like that?
The Chronic came out 92. Yes, 92, I believe.
Yeah. And then you had Snoop, and then you had Tupac, and then there's just this explosion of rap. I mean, before that,
that's right.
You know, there had been like, I remember being like in 5th grade when License to Ill came out and people had that cassette and passing that around. And that was, honestly, we listened to that because it was so rebellious and like,
it was
abusive and like just degenerate, like that License to Ill cassette. And then I also remember like kids having NWA, but as like a white Texas kid, like that did nothing for me. I was just like, this is dumb. But at least like,
sure.
You know, like the Beastie Boys was like relevant to middle schoolers, but it wasn't like anything about art. It was just edgy and disruptive. And we were like, oh my gosh, he said that many cuss words and he said that and he said this. So I would say, and then being in Texas, like in high school, there was the grunge thing. There was the whole like explosion of like rap, but that was like background music at parties. I don't remember like people like being rap enthusiasts, right? Like wearing T-shirts of Tupac. I don't remember that at all. But then also in Texas is like hugely into country music.
Right. Yeah, obviously. Sure.
So like one of the things that we would do a lot in high school is we would go country western dancing. And so you would either take a girl with you or you would go there and you just invite girls to dance. And that was really good. I realized as a young man, like you could pretty much ask any girl, even the prettiest girl in the room, to dance. And she would always say yes, just because girls love to dance. You know, and so I think like no, I'm telling you, like that epiphany as a 15, 16-year-old young man of repeatedly asking girls to dance, talking to girls, was a really good formative thing, I think, for me.
And then I obviously imagine No Felt Banners was up there as well, I'm assuming. That was funny. I heard that. So people in the chat were talking about, now I grew up, I don't know if later on in life, if you got through this, you would have this this cassette radio thing. When you put a cassette player, you have to hit record, and you can record what's on the radio onto the cassette. You have to time it
all the time. So like,
you remember that?
Yeah. So, and then my friends and I would be, okay, so we didn't have cell phones. We just had phones on the wall, but so you were always, to save money, you didn't have money. So you would always want to record the song when it came on the radio. And a lot of times they would announce the song, like, all right, in the next hour, we're going to play Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice. And you'd go and like, you would call, literally like a friend would call me like, yo, Ice Ice Baby is going to come on like in the next hour. And then we would get our cassettes queued in our players. And when they're like, all right, here's the, you know, Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby, you would hit record and then you'd capture that song and then you'd have it. Or if your friend did it, you could, if you had one of the double cassetters, you could put his cassette in there and then you could make a copy of his cassette. So like the big, you know, big songs, I remember like big songs that people wanted to capture were like Mama Said Knock You Out. I don't know what year that was.
80s. Late 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. LL was
Humpty
great.
Dance. People wanted to get Humpty Dance.
Yeah.
Ice Ice Baby, like those kind of songs, especially a lot of the stuff you couldn't buy because you were a minor. For example, when I was in elementary school, I tried to buy the cassette. I think it was a Bon Jovi cassette. And the checkout man told me and my mom, that's inappropriate for young people. You can't buy it.
Really?
And they had the parental advisory. So you couldn't, if you tried to check out, people working at Sam Goody were actually like people's parents and adults. They weren't like hipster radio people. They were like parents. So if you tried to buy stuff, you couldn't buy it. You know, so some of these songs you could get the edited version on the radio, and you would get them on the cassette.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, we need more people like that in the public square to where they're actually carrying what the children. Now, let's move on to movies. You got a favorite movie of all time?
I mean, a movie I watch every year that moves me is The Passion, but that's kind of a different thing. That's like The Stations of the Cross.
Yeah.
I don't have a favorite movie. I don't have a favorite movie.
You have a favorite actor, actress?
Nope.
No, okay. Yeah, it's all right. I'm going to play a quick game if you don't mind. It's called This or That. So I'm just going to say this or that. Okay. You can just answer. We just show.
Remember the Black Sheep song, This or That?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You get with this? Or you
should cue that for your music here.
Oh, yeah. That'd be funny.
That was one of the first CDs I ever bought, actually. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. The first rap album I ever got was the Fugees, The Score. Remember that one, Lauryn Hill? Yeah, that was a good album.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Marshall, staycation or vacation?
Vacation.
Vacation. Netflix or Hulu?
I don't have Hulu at all. And Netflix is kind of degenerate a lot of times. So they do have some good like documentaries and stuff. So I'm just going to pass.
Pass. All right. Night or morning?
Morning.
Morning. Rich and famous or rich and unknown?
Rich and unknown. Okay. Rich and unknown.
Passenger or driver?
Driver.
Art museum or history museum?
Art.
Okay.
Art museum.
Train or airplane?
Train.
Perfect. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
City or countryside?
Countryside.
Wine or beer?
Wine.
Okay. Pipe or cigar?
Cigar. I like both, but if I had to choose one.
Same here. I'll take a cigar over a pipe too. Cooking or being cooked for?
Cooking.
Attend the party or host the party?
Host.
Okay. Lose sleep or skip a meal?
Skip a meal.
Okay. Let's see. Fiction or nonfiction?
That's a really tough one. I'm like 50-50 on that. I can't answer it.
Okay. Hot coffee or iced coffee?
Hot. Iced coffee is bad.
Would you rather watch a reality TV show or a documentary?
Documentary all day.
Okay. Red wine or white wine?
Red.
Okay. Salad or sandwich?
Sandwich.
Okay, perfect. Move on now to faith. If you
I like this. I like that. That's good. I like it.
Yeah, just quick stuff. Just get the brain going and pick this or that.
Koffingberg says dog or cats? Dogs.
Dog over cat. Same here. Good. Somebody asked here, who was your favorite Thomas?
Well, the best Thomas is Thomas himself. But I'd say, honestly, like to find not only like brilliant Thomism, but to have like an accessible access is Gary Lagrange.
Lagrange. That's a great answer. Lagrange is the man. I'll move on with faith, but it's going to be kind of like lighthearted questions here, if you don't mind. Well, actually, first of all, I want to know, because you said your wife, but was there like a moment that you could remember that you said, "This is it. I'm going to be Catholic"?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was it was February 2nd, 2006, in the evening at Mass with Ben the 16th in St. Peter's. And I was standing by the bronze statue of St. Peter. And in that moment, it came time for communion. And this nun tried to move me forward to receive communion because I was in a black cassock. I was an Anglican priest, Anglican cleric.
Sure.
But I knew I couldn't receive communion because I was a schismatic and a heretic. Like in that moment, it was like the Holy Spirit said, "You are a schismatic and a heretic." And I knew I would go to hell if I didn't become Catholic.
Wow. Okay. That's beautiful. Treasure Island. You're stuck in Ireland. You could pick 3 Catholic books for the rest of your life. Which ones are you picking?
Father Lassant's Missal, Dewey Rhames' Bible. Does the Summa count as one book?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do the Summa.
A Summa.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a good one. If you could pick one saint, any saint in the history of the church, that could be the next guest for your podcast, who would you pick?
Blessed Mother.
You pick Our Lady? Okay.
Yes.
That's easy.
Definitely.
Right. If you could pick one male saint that you could have dinner with and just pick their brain, who would it be?
Either Joseph or Paul.
Okay. St. Joseph or St. Paul. On your deathbed, you get to pick one cleric today. It could be cardinal, priest to administer your last rites. Who would you want next to you?
And they're alive today?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. I know a lot of good priests. There's a lot of good ones. I don't want to name them because I don't want any of my other friend priests to be.
Okay, no worries. Yeah. How about what is this? Bishop Athanasius Schneider, just to give it a neutral sense.
There we go. Yeah,
Okay.
Bishop Athanasius Schneider. That's who I'll choose. I like.
You'd be good one. I'd pick him too if I could.
Yeah.
We have a question from the audience. Favorite female saint, not Our Lady.
Ooh. Yeah, I pray often to Saint Agnes.
Okay.
Many years ago, one of my spiritual directors, it was Father Phil Wolf, Fraternity of St. Peter. We were talking about overcoming temptations, in particular with lust. And he said, a really good thing to do is to pick a female saint that whenever you feel that temptation coming on, to invoke that saint to help you. As like a pure advocate, and so I chose Saint Agnes, and so I think I'd probably choose Saint Agnes because of that, and I love her story. And my favorite place in Rome is Piazza Navona, and her church is on the Piazza Navona, and her skull is in that church. I always go visit that church. So Saint Agnes.
Okay. Beautiful. We have a question from the audience. Which volume of the Summa is your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I'd say probably Prima Secundae or Tertia Pars, third part.
Got it. We have a question from the audience as well. We have, what made you not become a married Catholic priest, if you want to answer that?
8 kids.
Short, sweet, to the point.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to play a hypothetical game question for you here, and then we'll take some more questions from the audience. It's 2024. Holy Father has passed. The conclave goes on, and they have picked Dr. Marshall, your baptized male, as the next pope. Number one, what pope name are you picking, and what is the one thing that you would do to kind of bring the church right back to where it needs to be?
Wow. Presuming I say yes to the election.
Yes,
yeah. Presuming I say yes to the election.
Like Cardinal Siri, right?
Right. Maybe. Yeah. Oh boy. I'd probably choose Leo.
Okay.
Probably choose Leo as my name.
Leo the 14th could be.
Yeah. Leo the 14th. And then I would probably end all public acts of the Pope, like World Youth Days, and even probably Wednesday audiences and all that stuff. And then I would focus almost completely on the next Lent and Easter cycle. And the big public thing that I would do is I would say, I as Pope am going to baptize like 120 heathens on Holy Saturday. And I would allow it to be televised.
That's so cool.
So the Easter Vigil traditionally always happened at St. John Lateran, and they use the Lateran baptistry. So I would do all that like totally ancient, and I would get 40 Jewish people who want to be Catholic, 40 Muslims, 40 Hindus, and all that. And they would all be baptized by the Pope, and they'd all be confirmed, and then they'd have their candles, and then in their baptismal neophyte robes, as Pope, I would lead them into the Cathedral of St. John Lateran for their first Mass. And then I would just say, from now on, it's all about converts and drawing people to Christ. No more games, no more public anything, no more political stuff. This is it.
What would be, what would be your first encyclical? Because that would set up the papacy, I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah, just an encyclical on the primacy of adoring and offering thanks and worship to God, and then secondly, winning converts.
Right. Just right back to what the Great Commission is supposed to be.
Yeah, like everything that's like not that, and like photo ops and all that kind of stuff would all come to an end. People would be like, "Where's Pope Leo the 14th? Like, we just haven't seen him in a long time. He just says Mass, and prays, and like maybe." And I honestly probably wouldn't even issue many encyclicals.
Okay.
Like I would, and I would also, one of my first things would be firing a lot of cardinals and bishops.
Sure. I think all the male that I've interviewed asked that question. That's been one of their answers as well. I'm going to ask you another question, but somebody here asked, what is your favorite Catholic documentary? Do you have one? Just to give you a background, the person asking works for Mass of the Ages, so I think that
should be. I'm trying to think if I don't know. I mean, there's just not that many Catholic documentaries. I'm working on one. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but
look at that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's enough. Like Catholic films I could talk about, but I don't know about documentary.
Got it. Good question. Who's your favorite church father and why?
I really like Saint Leo the Great. Not why I would choose his name. Yeah, I like Leo. I like Basil. I like John Chrysostom, Ambrose. I like them all. I don't know. That's a hard one, but maybe Leo.
Got it. Okay. Let me ask you. So this other question is similar to the church question as in the papacy, but this time we're going to take a little bit more in more of the civil sense. It's Marshall 2024. It's Marshall Enoch 2024. So we're both running together. It's one ticket. It's going to be great. What is the first thing that you would do after being inauguration to bring the U.S. back into its great glory, or not back, but so much just give it the great glory that it's ever had?
I would rip out the bowling alley in the White House and make it an amazing Latin Mass chapel.
Nice.
And have Latin Mass for myself and the staff every single morning. And like I'd schedule, like if dignitaries were coming or whatever, like they would be invited to do that before the meeting. Like it would be the Mass would be the center.
Beautiful.
And maybe even serve it. Maybe even serve the Mass.
Sure. You'd institute Christ, the social kingship of Christ into a public square of our country, I'm assuming. Or maybe
I would, and I would have like, a prominent American cleric to lead a consecration of America to the Immaculate and Sacred Heart. Definitely.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. I appreciate that. Those answers are clear, concise, and to the point. Thank you. Nobody have any other questions? I have all mine. Is there anything I will say, I'll ask you one last thing if you want to share it before we end. I interviewed somebody who was heavy in the pro-life, and I asked if there was one argument that you would think that is the best argument for the pro-life. But for you, I'm going to say, what would you say is the greatest argument in your mind for the existence of God? If you could use one argument to convince someone, which one would you like?
Yeah, I think it's just it's just your classic watchmaker argument.
Okay.
You look around, you see the order, you
Right.
see the eyeball, you can't walk out into the desert and then you find a pocket watch and say, oh, this randomly came together and it keeps time perfectly. How interesting. I think that's the most compelling argument, because it's the argument that Paul uses in Romans chapter 1. So
Right.
I figure if that's Paul's back pocket argument, that we see the honor and the order and the glory of God by looking at creation and then noticing that there's a creator,
Right.
that's probably Paul. If it's good enough for Paul, it's good enough for me.
I was just about to say that. You stole it from me. Like they say, if it's good enough for Paul, it's good enough for me. Folks, Doctor, I appreciate you coming on and giving us your time and sharing
Hey,
your story.
we got a few more minutes. You want to keep going?
Keep going. Let's get people. Anybody asking any questions?
Sure.
We could just highlight their. See what they. Anybody got any questions? Just pop them in. I'll love to make sure the questions are charitable and about Dr. Marshall. Well, let's add this. Books or movies?
Books, for sure. Yeah, books.
Pizza or Chinese food?
Problem is, both are done badly so often. Done right, pizza. Done right, pizza.
Okay. All right. So I got another one for you. Okay. So Dr. Marshall is at a high-rise, nice, classy bar outlooking the beautiful city. What is the one go-to drink that he would go to, that he'd order from the bar?
Well, I stopped drinking in October.
That's right.
It's been over 100 days, and I'm kind of enjoying not drinking. It's a different way of doing life. I'm not saying I'm never going to drink again, but I mean, for me, it's always just been a great scotch.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you scotch over bourbon, I'd say.
Scotch and just scotch. Maybe an ice cube, but that's it.
Okay. So somebody asked, what would be your rap name if you had one?
Yeah, I've said that for years. DJ Dewey Rhymes.
I like it.
Dewey Rhymes. DJ Dewey Rhymes.
Doing great. And his album title will be Rapistolic Succession. Don't forget that.
Rapistolic Succession. I like it.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of rap, do you remember a rapper named Acolyte? Do you know who that is?
Yeah. I remember him. Yeah.
Is he still make anything, or is he gone? What happened?
I haven't heard from him in a while.
Okay.
Yeah, but I remember Acolyte. Father Stan was really the one who started everything, I guess you would say.
Right.
Father Stan, Righteous Be, but Acolyte was, came up with those guys too. So he's been doing it for a long time. He was a great lyricist.
Which one, Stan or Acolyte?
Acolyte.
Yeah.
Avoiding Babylon or Enoch? Do you know Avoiding Babylon? It's
Enoch.
Anthony and those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys are those guys have a great channel. Really great channel. Here we go. Do you have a favorite cigar brand or style?
Yeah, I really like Partagas and Padron.
Padron's my favorite.
Yeah, I like Padron.
64 or 26? Which one do you like better?
So honestly, I've had both the 1926 and the 64, and I can't tell enough of the difference. Since the 64s are cheaper, I go with the 64 if I'm going to go there.
They are cheaper.
But so Padron 64 is my Sunday after Mass cigar. That's my Sunday cigar. It's my good one.
Okay.
So after Mass, come home, brunch, everybody maybe change out of my church suit, and then I get my Padron 1964, and that's that.
Got it. What is your preferred drink with your cigar? For me, it's coffee, believe it or not.
Yeah, honestly, like even if I were drinking, I don't like scotch with a cigar as much. If it's a cigar, I like bourbon, but if it's bourbon or coffee, I actually like a really good espresso with a cigar.
Got it. Okay. You are at a bar, you're hanging out, everything's going great, and then 3 guys decided to attack you. You could bring back one saint from history to back you up. Who would you bring?
St. Michael's a saint.
Yeah. Oh, it's over.
Because
It's
he
over
has some
then. At
power.
this point,
He'd
yeah,
have
it's
some
over.
power.
Yeah.
I don't know who's I don't know, Samson. Can I get Samson in the ring?
Moses the Black, maybe? Would you bring him back? He was kind of
Yeah, but like he'd been fasting a lot towards the end. I want Moses the Black, like early thug life, and not
yeah, before the
like
conversion.
fasted and weak, you know?
Sure, yeah. That's what he said. Yes, I heard of C26. He's a part of the Foundation. They're a Catholic rap group. They're really good too. So if we can check them out
Okay.
too, give them a chance.
We got to
And then
get
of
you with
course,
Bryson Gray. You ever listen to Bryson?
you know what? I messaged him. I wanted to do a rap battle with him in person. Like I'll drive to Tennessee with a crowd, live Catholic
Right.
versus yeah, that would be great if anybody
So
could
is a
set
rap
that up.
battle, is
I would do it.
that like a cool thing to do, or
Rap battles are huge. They really got a lot of
no? But I mean,
attention,
like it
and
used to be like it was almost like a roast insult of each other.
yeah, yeah. I hate doing that type of rap battle, but for us to be kind of intelligent, like I would use my
Okay.
rap skill.
No, the one you did
Rap-
against the Lutheran was legit.
Yeah, right.
The Lutheran
That's what I
guy.
want to do, but with Bryson, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Or do a song with Bryson, that would be cool too. Because Bryson's
Yeah.
got some skills. Yeah, Bryson. So
Yeah.
does Zuby. He's got some skills too.
Yeah.
Zuby's pretty good. Um, uh, Mount Rushmore of popes. You can pick 4.
That's a good question there. Well, Peter is going to have to be on there for sure.
Mhm.
And Pius X is going to be on the far right. You got Peter on the left, and then Pius X on the far right, and then the 2 middle spots. I'm going to put either Pope Leo or Pope Gregory, probably Leo, and then I'm probably going to put, just to like troll everyone, Pius V on the 3rd spot.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. I like that one.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. Anything else you got your book? Everybody go, cop the book. The new.
Yeah, I got. Well, here's a copy. I got. Everybody already knows Infiltration.
Right. #1 seller at this point, right?
Yeah, this past week it became again #1 bestseller in all Catholic books.
Okay.
So it's #1 Catholic book again. I think that's just because things are getting kind of crazy in Rome, and people are like, "What's going on?" So people are buying Infiltration again. The newest book is Antichrist and Apocalypse. I don't have a copy here.
Okay.
And then Kennedy Hall just narrated my book, Sword and Serpent, and it's a #1 this past week too.
You couldn't have picked a better. He's got the smoothest voice, got radio voice. He's perfect at it. Yeah.
And he does all the different voices, all the different accents and dialects. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Well, I got to see that. I got to hear that for sure. I'm an auditory learner, so I'll definitely get that for sure. Doctor, I appreciate you again. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun. Got to share some of my more personal history and life. That was good, and I don't think I've ever been asked about or talked about Tupac on an interview or anything like that. So
yeah, well, just know that if there's any more diss songs coming your way, I got we'll
hey, you might want to finish that. You might want to finish that diss track. It went pretty hard. And the chorus on it was actually really awesome. Bring your Summa and all that. That was really funny. Like I was kind of bummed that it stopped. I was like, oh, come on. Like
okay.
Yeah, you gotta finish that one out.
I'll put a second verse on. I'll put a second verse on there.
How many verses are on? Well, the hard part's gonna be at the end when Tupac starts going all like calling people out.
Yeah, that's right. You could visibly see a vein popping out of his head. That's how hard he was going at the end. So yeah, it's kind of funny.
I don't know how you would handle all that part, but no, the chorus and everything was pretty funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, no, I really enjoy writing. I told my wife if she didn't stop me, she said prudence and temperance, I could make a song a week. That's just how much I love just doing it. But
you should. That's what I think Bryson puts one out every Friday.
Bryson does. That guy's always working. Yeah, I did put out 2 albums. Tradiciones was the first one, which was last April, and then Deus Volt was the one I put up last
Yes.
month. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Awesome. And so what's
Thank
next?
you.
Are you working on another one?
I am. Yeah, I got 2 songs already finished for
Oh,
the
good.
next one. I don't know how many I'll have, but I thought 12 for Deus Volt, but ended up being 16 tracks on there. So my
Nice.
last song it's called Fear Nothing. So
Okay.
that's a powerful one. It's a great one for the gym. If anybody wants to go to the gym, listen to that one. It's a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
That's what I've kind of rediscovered a lot of these artists like you and Bryson lately. And when I'm in the gym, I usually like to listen to something more upbeat than Gregorian chant. So it's a nice, you know what I mean?
We're going into at the gym. That'd
And
be
I love
hilarious.
Gregorian chant, but
Sure.
it's hard to be on the row machine and keep it going with that.
Do you have a favorite Thomistic hymn? Thomistic chant?
Yeah, Pange Lingua.
Pange Lingua,
It's the
okay.
best. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is Adorote Devote, but that's good too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks again, Doctor. God bless
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks,
Thanks again for checking in. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Appreciate it. All right. God bless. Thanks.
You too.